Hello and welcome to another episode of the Autoblog Podcast. I'm Greg Migliore. Joining me today in the studio is Assistant Editor Zach Palmer.
Hey there, how's it going?
It's going well. And at the other end of our big podcast table is Senior Editor John Snyder.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. It's Thursday afternoon. The work week is somewhat nearing its completion. We're on the penultimate day of it anyway. And we got a great show for you. So let's jump right in. Coming up, we're going to talk about the Toyota Tacoma and the Tundra sharing a platform. That's according to some reports we saw earlier this week. You guys loved it. This is one of the most traffic stories we've had in months. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to have some fun with the Easter Jeep concepts for the Safari, which is coming up next week. Zach saw those. Pretty cool looking. Pretty excited to talk about those. And then we've been hearing some rumors about an entry-level Mustang. So we're going to try to piece together what we know now. Then we'll get into what we're driving. We've had some cool things in the fleet, the Chevy Blazer, the Jeep Grand Cherokee. So that's a very new SUV and a very old SUV. But two pretty interesting ones nonetheless. And the Genesis G70, which is, I had a lot of fun driving that. Really interesting, I'd say, product for Genesis. It does a lot of different things for them. And we're going to break that down.
Very nice car, in my opinion.
All right.
We'll talk all about it.
More on that coming up. Cool. Then lastly, we will spend your money. So that's what we have coming up. We hope you enjoy the show. But yeah, let's jump right in. Tundra, snowstorm. We had one of those this morning a little bit, actually. And the Taco, same platform. This will obviously allow them to achieve some manufacturing efficiencies. If they do this, we should note that they have not actually confirmed this. But Zach, you did write the initial story, so kind of take us through it.
Yeah, so I saw the original report. It uses some unnamed sources from Toyota. They're claiming that the new truck platform, which they dub F1, is almost ready, actually, and it's going to underpin both the Tundra and the Tacoma. So the weird thing about that, of course, is those are two different size trucks. So the Tundra being full size and the Tacoma being a mid-size truck. It's not a super common thing that we see in the industry that those two different size trucks use the same platform. So Toyota will probably have to take a page out of the Tinga, their TNGA global platform that they're using for a bunch of their cars and crossovers now, actually. And the assumption is that it will be a modular concept that they'll use for these trucks. The curious thing that I would like to see is, which one will it benefit the most? I don't know how modular they'll be able to make it, but will they prioritize the Tacoma? Will they prioritize the Tundra? Will either one of those trucks be getting larger or smaller?
Yeah.
The Tundra, it's a pretty big truck, but the F-150, Ram, Chevy, those trucks tend to be a little on the larger size comparatively. And I wouldn't doubt if they try and make that any bigger, but at the same time, that comes at the expense maybe of the Tacoma. And people love that truck. That truck sells like crazy.
Yeah, it does.
So they really can't screw that one up.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens. I like the TNGA platform, what they've been doing with that. Recently drove the Corolla, really nice platform. So if they can take that sort of formula and apply it to their trucks, that's great. It's a little interesting, like the two different size trucks, those are usually the larger platform will underpin, other SUVs, and the mid-size platform is usually shared with, mid-size crossovers or something. So it's interesting that this will be sort of more diverse and potentially scalable. So I'm interested to see what they do with it. I think it's for sure a good thing for manufacturing, for saving cost and time there, and development costs. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens with that.
I think what this could do is bring their truck portfolio in one fell swoop, perhaps up to speed and make it more competitive than it currently is.
Yep. I think, Toyota's done a lot of talk about electrification of all their future vehicles. This could be one way if they want to electrify trucks, get better mileage there.
Naturally.
Something like a 48-volt system, if they're designing a whole new platform. Ram's doing it with the 1500 with the e-torque. I think it could be totally feasible if Toyota wanted to go that route.
It's interesting, too, because the truck I'm most I would say interested, perhaps concerned about here is the Tacoma. I feel like whatever they're going to do with this platform, they're going to come up with a pretty good Tundra. It probably still, you never know, but it probably might not eclipse, say, the Detroit 3 at this point.
Yeah.
Although you never know. I'm probably getting ahead of myself.
This is their shot to do that, though.
This is their shot to do it. That's a great point. But the Tacoma to me is such like it has such a core group of enthusiasts who want it, who like it for what it is, the ride, the styling, just it's
dependability.
Yes. So to me, you don't want the Tacoma to become like just a shortened Tundra. That being said, these two trucks are still a little bit of a ways out. Sources tell me that the Tundra is 2021, perhaps.
Okay.
And I've also seen that the Taco is 2024.
Oh, wow.
So that's a little farther out. They are actually rolling out a refreshed Tacoma this summer. We saw it, I believe, at the Chicago Auto Show.
Yep.
So that one still has some legs on it, a little bit of life in it, I think, as far as the current gen. So this is a little bit of a ways out. So we'll see. I think, these are two very critical vehicles for Toyota. It makes a lot of sense to put them on the same platform. And obviously you can, tune the chassis all different ways. And that's where you could probably get that more, trail ready, rumbly bumbly kind of Tacoma ride. And then you could certainly tune it another way. Use an entirely different sort of chassis setup to get that more traditional full-size truck feel for the Tundra. So I'm confident they could do it. I think, like you guys mentioned, this is their shot to get this truck where both these trucks, like where they, perhaps Toyota thinks they should be in the pecking order. The Tacoma is got, again, to go back to the Tacoma, that really is a wild segment right now with the Gladiator coming on, with the Colorado and the Canyon still being very strong. The Ranger, we just had a story about the Frontier being redesigned, the Ridgeline. Like the Tacoma's kind of got its own identity. And I think that's really critical for it. You can shuffle the deck in that midsize truck order. Right now, I think we're leading towards Jeep and Ford is among the best in segment, although we will have a comparison coming up in March. We'll tease that out. You got to come back for that. But with the bigger trucks, the order is much more set, so Toyota really has to pick somebody off to move up in that. Whereas right now, there's just, I think, a lot of people that like the Tacoma for what it is. I'm one of them. I really like it. Would I say it's the best in that segment? No. But would I still consider buying one? Yes. And that's where I think they get so much critical mass.
Yeah, exactly what you're talking about there. The Tacoma, it's cemented in that segment as the top. I just don't see the Tundra, ever actually getting close to the big three. Ram and Chevy, they're going crazy with their fight right now. Ram actually just outsold the Silverado in the first quarter, and that fight just seems to be raging as hard as ever. And the Tundra, they'd have to do a lot for all of America to really take notice with the Tundra, but right now it's more of just like a niche Toyota buyer with that truck. It doesn't have the huge mass appeal that the Tacoma does, I feel.
I think it's interesting too because the economy is still generally pretty good. Housing market is decent. Interest rates are okay. Credit is available. If there ever were a time for the Tundra to make some gains, things are good right now.
That's a good point.
So I don't know. Maybe it would take a total blow up of the economy, and sometimes that is a reverse effect. That would be very unexpected though for that to happen. So we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. And these are both built in Texas. So we've already started to see some spy shots. So hopefully, we'll keep our ear to the ground and, our shooters at the ready, and we'll be talking to, our colleagues at Toyota about what's going on. So we'll, know what we know as soon as we possibly can.
I actually think as I kind of look at my notes, I feel like the Tacoma is going to be more like 2022 or 3. I just don't. 24 seems like a really long time away.
Yes, it does.
And the Tacoma does run for a historically very long time, but I don't know. I'm thinking a little bit earlier in the 20s. Something interesting, too, I think you wrote this in your article, Zach, is the Sequoia is based off the platform as well, currently with the Tundra, if I'm understanding that right.
With the Tundra.
So, I mean, that's going to be another sort of domino butterfly effect here is what happens to that. So,
Exactly.
I mean, we'll see. The Sequoia is obviously a very, lucrative vehicle for them. Full-size SUV. Things are good in that market right now too.
Yeah, everybody, there's a whole lot of new 3-row crossovers, SUVs that keep coming out. Hyundai and Kia, they got the Palisade and the Telluride. Obviously, the Sequoia is a little, probably more off-roady, a little more hardcore than those, but still, that's a hot segment right now.
I think too with the Toyota SUVs, they have a very strong lineup, top to bottom. Some of it is very old, but it's also, they have, the Land Cruiser, they have the Sequoia, they have the 4Runner. Like, they truly have a top to bottom sort of off-road, rough and ready lineup of vehicles. And then obviously you get down to like things more like the Highlander and, the RAV4, and it gets a little more daily driver-like, if you will. But right now, I think they have a very strong lineup of SUVs. So this platform, Tinga as we call it, I would expect to underpin some of it, a lot of it perhaps even. So, we'll see. Any other thoughts on this?
No, I'm just excited to see what comes out. And yeah, just really super curious about how these are going to compete in, these hot segments. Especially with, the Ranger and the Gladiator coming to life. Should be interesting.
You guys love this story. This is one of our most traffic stories we've had in months. So be sure to head to Autoblog if you haven't already and check it out. But very interesting development this week. And we should note that Automotive News was the one who originally reported that, and then it went all around the internet. So moving along, the Easter Jeep Safari is coming up. Zach also went to get the scoop on this. You went up to the FCA Design Dome, which is not all that far from here and near Autoblog Tower. Break it down what these are, just for the novice. I'm sure most of our readers know what the Easter Jeep Safari is, but just break it down what this big thing is for, the non-Jeep guy and what these concepts are, and then we could get into them.
So Jeep has been doing this event called the Easter Jeep Safari for going on 53 years now. This will be the 53rd one this year. And more recently, it's taken on huge life with Jeep designing a ton of just awesome concept Jeeps that they take out to Moab. Half the time, they're just completely unrealistic vehicles that would never make production, like some of the Jeeps that we're seeing this year. And, they make it because it's fun. They at the event, Tim Kaniskis, he came out there and says, "Hey guys, it might look like we're just having fun here while everyone else is doing work, but this is actually a lot of work." And they take this seriously. All these cars that they come out with here, they're good off-road. They're serious trail riders. So that's what it's about. It's about going out there, riding around in some pretty badass Jeeps and having fun. So.
Jeeps are fun. The lineup this year is really, really impressive.
It's super cool.
I mean, honestly, the last I can't remember an Easter Jeep lineup that was lame. So it's kind of hard to,
Good point.
Do that. The one that stands out to me, two of them, is the JT Scrambler, which, I mean, it's exactly what you think it is. Words don't do it justice, but if you go to the site, check out the gallery, it's just got that 80s sort of livery. It's, it's a really good looking Jeep. Pretty excited about that. Pumpkin metallic, orange and nacho. I mean, what a great name.
Yeah, those stripes are so cool. They just grab my heart and take it back to, when I was just starting to learn to drive and people are fixing up these old Jeeps and driving them around. It's really cool.
Yeah.
We should note that most of these are Gladiator based. I suppose we kind of skipped a step there, but obviously with the Gladiator launching this year, the Easter Jeep Safari is very Gladiator heavy, and that's what the Scrambler is. It's almost like a kind of a wink and a nod here too. Like you thought we were gonna call it the Scrambler. Well, we didn't, but okay, we'll do a Jeep Safari, kind of Scrambler concept.
Yeah,
so it's very cool.
Each one of these concepts has a bed.
Yeah, they're all trucks. They're 6 trucks. The one thing that jumps out to me about the JT Scrambler actually This one seems like the most realistic thing that Jeep could actually do. They can make some sort of special appearance package and just print money with this. You know, it's based off the whole color and design scheme is based off the 1982 Scrambler with the actual same pumpkin metallic orange and nacho. And this one doesn't use any crazy materials or anything that's super far out. It just looks awesome. So
you saw these in person. What's your favorite, Zach?
My favorite is definitely the Jeep 5 Quarter, which is probably the most far out of all of them. It was actually based off of a 1968 military Jeep called the M715, and that's the civilian version of that Jeep was actually called the Gladiator. So they bought this Jeep off Craigslist and pretty much went crazy from there. The big headline thing there is that they dropped the Hellcrate 6.2 liter supercharged V8 in there. They claim over 700 horsepower. They didn't give us a weight, but from just looking at it, you know, this is a Jeep from the 60s, and so it weighs just about nothing with that much power. It's going to be an absolute rocket out there.
It's got to be almost undrivable, right?
Yeah, no, they started it up for us there. It sounds just like a Hellcat. You know, you got the huge supercharger whine, stupid loud exhaust.
I bet it's such a blast.
It is going to be awesome for whoever gets to drive that. I'm very jealous.
It still looks like it could go off-road. It's got, you know, those giant tires where those, like, 35 inches?
Those are 40-inch tires.
Oh, jeez.
40-inch tires, 20-inch wheels.
So that really shows how big this truck is when you put that into that perspective. Because, this sucker is huge.
Yeah, you'll have to go online and check this one out. You know, they completely ripped the front end off, designed a bespoke front end there. Most of it is either carbon fiber or fiberglass. The bed has wooden slats in it. You can see, you know, you can get under the bed and look straight up and you can see the sky. It has a lot of really, really cool design touches, and it's a convertible too. You can take the top off. I don't actually see any roll bar there, but you know, we'll see what Jeep does when they get it out to Moab. They might want to put some sort of safety device in there with 700 horsepower.
That could be one I could see them letting the riders sort of maybe drive it on like flat, like fairly hard dirt somewhere for like short distances. Like, okay, you're going to wear a helmet and you're going to just drive on this like, you know, dried riverbed or something for like 400 yards or something, or a quarter of a mile or something like that. But that's very sweet. It really harks back to it, or underscores the heritage of the Gladiator name, which I think is cool. Again, like my favorite of these, close second would be that one though, was the Scrambler. And I mean, so many people thought that was going to be the name. And I think it's really cool that when they did sort of, I would say, throw that curveball, they explained what the Gladiator means to like a new audience. And as somebody who likes Jeeps, who likes history, I was aware of the Gladiator. I think most of us were, but like now I'm really sort of understanding and really buying into why the Gladiator, I think, actually is in fact the rightful name. Scrambler's cool too, though. John, you got a favorite?
It's a toss up between, well, it's probably the J6. I think that was executed really well. 2-door standard cab, with that. I really like that blue color, and it's got that blue bed liner too. It's got a nice, more usable 6-foot bed. It's, you know, but mostly it's pretty realistic. It's got the 3.6 liter Pentastar. So yeah, it's mostly pretty close to stock. It's a 2-inch lift, but it's got those big beadlock tires. And yeah, I think Joel wrote up a thing about how this could potentially be realistic with a conversion kit. Jeep has done things like that before. You could certainly do that with the Wrangler and make one just like this, and that would be really cool. But I also really like the Jeep way out concept, which is sort of an overland design. It's got these cool steel wheels. It's got a tent on the top. It's got a snorkel. So that just, you know, it it engages all my fantasies of going out in the woods in this thing and getting super far out, fording rivers, driving over logs, and getting to where no car's ever been before, and then camping. And just evokes that imagination, and I love it.
How good does the Gladiator look in two doors too? Like when you look at that shot, that's a sweet look right there.
No, when I walked in there and saw that, that Jeep was taunting me. Like, that is the Gladiator I want right there. If I had my way, there would absolutely be a standard cab Gladiator. But the business case is apparently not there because Jeep is not committing to doing anything of the sorts right now.
That's interesting. I would think there would be some engineering challenges there, even though there's a two-door Wrangler, but just the way the top is on the Gladiator. And I mean, I would think there'd be some challenges there, but man, that down the road, that sure seems like a great way to sort of evolve the Gladiator maybe 4 or 5 years out when they've, already hit that like initial like excitement surge. Do a two-door one, and man, that looks good.
Yeah, it does.
Cool. Any other thoughts here on the Easter Jeep Safari?
I urge people to go and look at these photos, especially of that 5-quarter, because when you see the pictures of the truck on its own, without like another human standing next to it for perspective, it doesn't look super crazy. But we've got some photos with human beings standing next to the truck, and you see, oh yes, those are 40-inch wheels, and this thing is just absolutely massive. It's really interesting to look at. And then they used an old supercharger as to house the transmission, and it's just really, really interesting all around. There's some good shots under the hood. You get look at the suspension and that Hellcat engine. Just wonderful photos. Thank you, Zach, for doing that.
Well, thanks, John.
All right, guys. Glad everybody likes everybody's photos. That's a very cool part of this job, though, is getting to go see things like that. And, I mean, who doesn't like off-road Jeeps? It's fun stuff. So, also on the list of fun things this week, a little sketchier, a little fuzzier. We don't know all the details. Getting word about a potential entry-level Mustang. So the details are, again, pretty murky, pretty shadowy here. We've got basically like a spy shot of it that we reported on just a couple days ago. There's a lot going on there. It's kind of hard to tell exactly what the end result might be. John, why don't you kind of give us your take / break it down a little bit?
Sure. So what we can sort of make out in this photo is 19-inch wheels that look kind of wide, a chin spoiler, some items that look like they're from the Performance Pack 1, Performance Pack 2. This is supposed to be an entry-level sort of performance Mustang, so this might be some sort of performance pack for the EcoBoost, like a Performance Pack 2 for the EcoBoost version of the car. Which would be really cool. I like a car that handles well. I don't necessarily need all the power of a V8 all the time. Although the Mustang's V8 is just so good, it's worth it. I would pony up the extra cash for that.
Pun intended, of course.
But I think it's a great idea. Especially, if you're daily driving the thing, you could, maintain some of the sanity of a V6 while getting some of the handling and those goodies from some of the performance upgrades. So we'll find out really soon what this actually is. But
yeah, if I had my guess, I'm gonna say it's probably gonna be a higher power version of the 2.3 liter EcoBoost engine. They get about 350 horsepower out of it in the Focus RS. It does not make that much in the Mustang right now. Granted, those are two different versions of like the same engine, but I think that there is more room for them to get more power. And if this goes in the direction of like a Camaro 1LE, I think that would be really cool, because right now I think that Chevy does a better job with those entry-level performance cars, entry-level versions of the Camaro than Ford does. You know, they have the Performance Pack 1, Performance Pack 2, but the 1LE definitely feels like a more comprehensive package. You know, you get some appearance stuff to go along with all the extra suspension. And I think that Ford might even be able to one-up them by doing suspension, aero, and extra power. So.
Yeah, I think that would be a good move. I think the scenario you kind of sketch out there, Zach, seemed like a very likely scenario. I think there's definitely some room for Ford to maybe conquer some buyers, if you will, with a little bit more of a holistic package sort of in this segment. Something that would be like a Camaro 1LE fighter. I believe they have a 4-cylinder 1LE, if I'm remembering correctly. It's based on that 2-liter engine Chevy does. So for Ford to counter with something truly with all those bits and pieces, perhaps with, I don't know what they would call it, that could really get people fired up.
Yeah, I don't know, like you said, I don't know what kind of name they'd throw on it. I don't see something like an ST badge. I personally wouldn't care for them throwing an ST badge on a Mustang. But then using the Shelby name, also that denotes the GT350 and GT500.
Right.
So I'm not really sure which way they're going to go with this one as far as what they're going to call it. They could call it a different performance pack, but we'll see how comprehensive the upgrade actually is for this entry-level performance model.
I feel like what they have to do is, I think they will figure out a way to get all the performance pieces there. I'm not worried about that at all. I think then what you got to do is create some sort of buzz, and that's where you could sort of maybe eat a little bit of Camaro's lunch, because 1LE is great for enthusiasts. And I guess if you're going to buy a Camaro, you're generally an enthusiast. But outside of a lot of, car guy places, people don't really know what the 1LE is. If Mustang could come in here with something that, might grab a few more headlines, who knows? But like you, Zach, I'm kind of coming up empty as to what name they might call this, but we'll see.
We'll find out soon.
Yep.
And as long as they can sort of keep this, below the price of a 5.0, it makes sense. If you start adding stuff to the EcoBoost Mustang, and the price starts inching up above the base GT, I don't really see it doing that well.
Totally agree with that. That is, I think they've got to price this thing right. They've got to market it right, and I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Cool. So even though we're not driving the entry-level Mustang just yet, we've been driving a lot of things here in the fleet. So let's get into that. Chevy Blazer was hanging around here for quite some time. We spent a good deal of time in it. It was a very nice Blazer. Came in north of $51,000. It was the RS package. Joel Stocksdale is doing a feature review on just the RS package, what it's like to drive that thing. Had the V6 engine. It was bright red. I thought it was a lot of fun to drive. It was also a little bit divisive. Where did you guys land on it? Your shirt is red, Zach, like the car. We'll start with you.
Yeah, so I was really, really excited to drive this crossover. Actually, probably one of the most excited crossovers that I've wanted to drive in a long time, I guess. I really like the looks. This is somewhat controversial, like you were saying there. It looks a lot like a Camaro almost from the front. They're really taking a lot there. The bright red paint, like you see this thing from a mile away. And I like the fact that they went for it with the design. They could have done a cookie cutter crossover, just like everybody else, just a box. And but no, this has real style to it, and I really appreciate that. The interior, I had some more mixed feelings about that. For the price that ours was, there's a little bit too much plastic, and the red surrounding the actually pretty cool air vents does not feel like it's going to age well to me. It feels like a little cheap performance, like it's an unnecessary add-on. I don't really feel like that's a great move there. The actual driving of it, I really, really like Chevy's 3.6 liter V6. That was great. Paired well with the 9-speed automatic, really quick shifting. Car was fast. What I wanted with the RS, it's a really loud appearance. I almost wanted a little more engine note, like a little more exhaust. This is a pretty special looking crossover as far as crossovers go. Maybe tell the world a little bit more, like it's a fast crossover. They're aiming it towards people that like to drive. The handling is it didn't impress me, but it was definitely good enough, I feel. So yeah, those I guess are my thoughts on the Blazer. A little expensive. The RS looks awesome. If you're in it for the looks, go for it. But you have to really, really like those looks to buy it over something like an Edge ST, which has more power and it is better.
I'm not really in love with those looks at all, man.
No,
no, it's I don't know. It's eye grabbing, yes, but I think it's still a little too derivative of some of the other crossovers. I didn't think they took it far enough in another direction. It was originally like supposed to be more Camaro-ized. I don't think it was Camaro-ized enough, or it just didn't. It still looks too much like a little Equinox for me. And as someone who owned an S10 Blazer, all the different creases and angles just don't do it for me. And then, like you mentioned, the interior with all that plastic. I mean, like that's something that I feel like Chevy has struggled with for a while. Is with that interior sort of perception of quality, and I don't think they capture it here either.
I think this one, which comes in at actually just under $51,000. I think with all the RS goodies, it gets the interior to be decent to good, but it's still not like amazing. Like I feel like for $51,000, any interior should be pretty damn good. And to me, this is just getting into that threshold, and it takes them almost 51 grand to do it. So I think this could be very trim specific too. Like a base Blazer, I'm a little worried about what that interior might look like.
Yeah, I'm really curious to try out some lower tier Blazers, I guess. What does it look like without the crazy red, without all the crazy black trim on the outside? I actually like it. But
each his own.
Yeah. There's a lot more chrome on all the lower trims. So we'll see. This is a big play in that two-row crossover segment from Chevy. So we'll see if people go for it or not.
I really like the looks of it. I think to me, an RS trim, it does look sufficiently Camaroized, which is an awesome word. I'm so glad you just made that up. Maybe we should work that into the headline of this or something. I thought they actually did get it right. At first, I didn't. When I first saw these pictures last summer, I want to say fall, when this first hit, I was like, okay, what's going on here? But now that I've seen it, I've driven it, I really do think they got the looks correct. I think a lot of it is in sort of like the long creased hood, the headlights, the grille, and some of it admittedly is just you take that basic shape and then layer on some of the RS appearance goodies, and it looks pretty good. Add on the red paint. And I guess that, to me, that was enough to tip it into like true Camaro territory. Almost so much so that I could see if they were like, this is just the Camaro crossover, blasphemy. Wow. I almost would have believed that this design was enough to like support that theory. That's just my take. I like driving it. V6 is good. We've all driven this V6 a million times.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different things. 9-speed transmission was pretty good. Like we said, the interior is okay. I am still intrigued that they did go with a Blazer name for this. They literally, like I just said, they could have called it the Camaro crossover as far as I'm concerned. John's like, no, this is like Equinox, duh. But I don't know. I'm a little surprised they didn't like save the Blazer for something maybe a little more blocky or a little more, just a different type of vehicle.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's almost a trend that you see, manufacturers are bringing back these old names. We have the Honda Passport, The Bronco is coming back. Obviously, the Ranger has made its return. But this Blazer, whereas all the other ones sort of resemble the older vehicle to a certain degree, like you said, this Blazer takes a totally different path than the old one. Being a performance crossover, so to say, versus the old truckish Blazer.
It's a very contemporary design too. It, like, when I looked at it, I could almost see some Volvo elements in there. Even just like things like Acura and Infiniti are trying, which I'm sure Chevy loves to be lumped in with that like set.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a good looking design, and just the way they like kind of float the pillars and have different things blacked out on this RS trim, it stands out, and I think, we were all talking about the different trim levels. I was looking at a very basic Jaguar F-Pace the other day, and I thought to myself, man, I love the F-Pace we had here last year, one of our log turbers. I was looking at this thing, and it was like, is that an F-Pace? Is that a Stelvio? Is that just some sort of Acura thing that I'm blanking on what it was? Like, I think in the crossover segment, it can be very trim specific. You get the right wheels, you get the right amount of chrome, the right grille, they can really pop. And I think that's why I was so taken with the Blazer. But other, lower levels, maybe not so much. And that F-Pace sort of underscored that with me. I was like, oh, wow, base F-Pace? That does not look quite like this flashy Jaguar SUV. So
I predict that in 3 years, we're all going to be sick of the look of the Blazer. We're going to have seen it. I mean, it stands out. And so we're going to be, every time we see it, we're going to be looking at it. And then all those things that stick out, those blacked out things, and like, it's going to look tacky, I think.
Well, like, to your point, though, I call it very contemporary,
yeah.
But that time doesn't last forever.
Right.
I mean, it could be, and frankly, we may be at the end of that sort of style phase. So, yeah, I'm inclined to actually see where you're going there, Snyder. Like, 2020, it's going to be like maybe back to simple, just, paint, sheet metal, all that stuff. That's what it is. You're not going to have all these different accents and like blacked out like pillars and wheels and things. So yeah, I totally see where you're going there. So yeah, that was the Blazer. Cool. The Camaroized Blazer forges a different path from its heritage, to sum up both of your takes.
It finds new roads.
It finds new roads. All right. Speaking of a vehicle that spends a lot of time probably off-road, or at least it could, is the Grand Cherokee Trailhawk, which we had in the fleet. It also coincidentally cost about $51,000. Cool vehicle. I'm going to drive it this weekend. I drove it actually yesterday too. There's not a lot new here, to be blunt. This is the Grand Cherokee that we've all been driving since 2000 and something.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but I think it still holds up really well. I actually think this one did feel like $51,000 with the interior.
Yeah, I completely agree with the interior, and then with all the extra equipment that makes it more capable. Yeah, for sure. Definitely more worth that price tag. Yeah, and it's starting to feel a little old, but not in a bad way, in a familiar way, sort of. I think that's sort of what Jeep does, though, is at least, with their iconic nameplates like Cherokee, Grand Cherokee, Wrangler, they sort of evolve them. They don't want to shake it up too much because people like it the way it is. If you revolutionize it, people are going to be like, "What, you broke the Grand Cherokee." So I think this can live like it is for quite a while longer, or with very minor changes. This being the Trailhawk, I was impressed with how good it is on the road. Very comfortable. It's got a nice ride. It steers well. But yeah, it's still very, very capable off road. All these Trailhawks are very good. They're no Wranglers, but they're not that too far off. So yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, no, I was really wanting to get off road with it when I was driving it. You feel like it. I have this big heavy duty suspension under you. You know, you feel like it's super capable in that way. You know, it's I guess technically in the same segment as the Blazer, but it couldn't feel further from it.
Right.
As far as actually driving it. You know, the 3.6 liter V6 is you know, it's rough. It's a gruff and rough engine, I'd say. Transmission is pretty smooth, but you know, it just the thing that I was most taken with was this, you know, being the Trailhawk trim, was the way it looked. Actually, it has the really cool black hood graphics, the great red tow hooks. You know, you almost have to get that red paint when you have the red tow hooks as well. It looked fantastic.
I mean, that's the thing that you notice first that tells you this is a Trailhawk. It's not a badge, it's those red tow hooks. You see that and you're like, oh, there's a Trailhawk.
Exactly. Yeah, and then you go around back and there's a cool Trailhawk badge there. And yeah, no, I mean, it feels super capable on road when you're driving it. You know, I don't know if I'd necessarily want to commute in it every day, but it is comfortable enough, you know, if you are somebody that wants to go out on the trails and have some fun, but also have a somewhat luxurious interior to drive around in. You know, we have enough potholes on the streets around Ann Arbor that maybe a big Jeep makes enough sense around here.
Yeah,
so,
at least this time of year before they get to fixing them, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
I think to go back to something you said there, John, about the design, I think the Jeep design, especially for the Grand Cherokee, is totally timeless. Like, they don't need to do much to iterate, to evolve this thing. It looks pretty good. I think I probably wouldn't get a Trailhawk if I was going to get a Grand Cherokee. I think I'd probably skew towards a Wrangler or a Gladiator maybe. And then if I needed like something like this, I would go with the Grand Cherokee with maybe just some of the more premium things. I wouldn't spend all the money to get all the off-road goodies, even though they're super cool on this thing. I also probably wouldn't get a bright red one, which, you know, it is what it is. It worked for the Blazer, in my opinion, but not so much for the Grand Cherokee, but that's cool. I mean, like I said, with the Blazer, we're judging it with the benefit of like being like prisoners of the moment. This is our first impressions of this thing. With the Grand Cherokee, we've been driving this for so long that, you know, whatever. I still think it's an awesome vehicle at or near the top of its segment. I don't care what the paint is. I just didn't like this shade of red, but who cares, you know?
Right.
Give it to me at a different color, and it's awesome. I think it's really interesting, just looking at these Monronis in front of me here. Identical powertrains. Both have 3.6 liter V6s, 8-speed transmission for the Jeep, 9-speed for the Chevy, $51,000, give or take a few $100 for each one. And fuel economy is 18 and 25 for both. So even though the Jeep is a much older vehicle, the powertrains, I believe, are actually about the same age, roughly. So thus, very similar fuel economy. I would take the Jeep. I do like the Blazer. I'm probably liking it more than I am almost surprised. Maybe I am a little more of a prisoner of the moment. But still, if I were going to probably spend money, it would be the Grand Cherokee, between these two anyway.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. You know, if I'm going to look at form or function, I'm probably going to choose function every single day. And
form, I mean, Grand Cherokee's cool as hell as far as I'm concerned.
That's true.
I mean, it's a very timeless look. I think when you go back, like, and you look at the lug sweep of Jeep history, this isn't going to be one of the more like safari, you know, famous off-road vehicles, but I think this is definitely going to be a Hall of Famer for Jeep, because this is one of the first vehicles that they like relaunched in 2009 when they came out of bankruptcy. They showed this car, and I want to say the New York Auto Show, somewhere around then, maybe even before they went into bankruptcy, because this was like the thing to show people, hey, no, we're not dead. We still have product. Our flagship SUV is still going to be around. And, you know, obviously they've, you know, lightly refreshed this in the ensuing almost decade, but this is still basically that same Grand Cherokee. And I'm really impressed with how well it's held up. The sales have been there. It's made a boatload of money for them. And if I'm not, you know, misremembering here, I believe it's still based on an old Mercedes chassis. So
that's pretty cool.
It's part of the old Daimler Chrysler merger.
Fact.
So yeah, great vehicle. I think we all enjoyed that. But yeah, so let's move along to something else that's very new to the segment, the Genesis G70. This one was the Prestige edition. Also was bright red. That seems to be a thing. Had a very blinged out grill. I don't have a price on this one. That is what it is. But John, you both had some pretty strong thoughts on this. Let's start with you, John.
So I went on the first drive of this and pretty much fell in love with it. I drove it on the track, and it's very trackable, but it's super nice on the road too. It uses a modified version of the Stinger platform. It's a little bit shorter than the Kia Stinger, and it loses the biggest things it loses compared to the Stinger is rear leg room and rear storage, the trunk space. But man, it is just really nice inside. I like the exterior design quite a bit. It's more conservative than say the Stinger or even some of the German competitors, but geez, that interior is gorgeous and it is super comfortable. I just feel like a king when I'm driving it around, and it drives the business too. It is happy to string corners together. It feels super confident at high speeds. On ramps and off ramps, and merging through traffic and accelerating it, and then taking the sort of the country back roads near my house. It's just really, really fun to drive. I would pick this over a Stinger. I wrote a piece comparing this to the Stinger. And when you equip them comparably, they're about identical in price. So with the Stinger, you're getting a little more room. With this, you're getting a little more luxury. And then, the Stinger is more of a Grand Tourer. This is more of a sports car.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sums it up very, very neatly. I could feel the difference in, I would say the difference between the two as far as length. To me, the Genesis really did feel more trackable than our Stinger does.
Mm-hmm.
And our Stinger is a pretty fun car to drive.
It is.
But just going around corners, the feedback, it felt a little more buttoned down too.
Absolutely.
You did, with the Stinger, you always feel like you're going to hang the tail out or something, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I was impressed with this car. I rolled in Monday morning, and I think our long-term Pacifica, parked it, charged it, and looked over, and I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
Is this on ours? Went upstairs, looked at the cardboard, boom, signed it out for Wednesday real quickly. I want to get in this thing. Like you, John, I think the interior is really good.
Yeah.
Really surprised with not just the quality of the materials, because it's one thing to throw a lot of expensive stuff on there and then say it's luxury, but it all worked pretty well together. Like the quilting and the doors, the speakers, they really nailed it. And I'll give Genesis a lot of credit, because that's not easy to do no matter how long you've been making luxury cars.
And this is a little interesting fact that I learned on the launch. Where the stitches are, where the seams of the leather connect, where it folds over so they can stitch it, that little edge of the leather is sort of beveled, so it lays flat when they fold it over. So you notice in a lot of cars where the stitching is, there's like a little rise, a little bulge along that seam, but in this Genesis, it's perfectly flat and smooth, and I think that's just a wonderful example of the amount of attention to detail and design that they put into this car.
So I think I'm about 90 to 95% of where you are on the interior. I love the materials. I love the way it all looks. But there are a couple little things, hang-ups for me. The infotainment system.
Yes.
It feels like it's straight out of a Kia
Mm-hmm.
or Hyundai. I feel like something they could do there, just throw some sort of a Genesis skin on it for the whole lineup. It just, I don't feel like there should be too much carryover between the non-luxury brand versus the luxury brand there. And then also the same with the instrument cluster. That feels, I hop out of our Stinger and I hop into this G70, and you can hardly notice a difference. There's a different color here and a different color there, but it's same font, it's the same layout, it's the same buttons you use. It feels a lot like a Kia, I guess, in that respect. But, when you look at the interior as a whole, like the quilted pattern, that is absolutely gorgeous. The leather there. And then the layout, super easy, has those big knobs there, super easy to read. Nothing seems out of place. Everything's easy to find. So in those respects, I really like it. And then driving it, it drives a lot like the Stinger, but just a little bit smaller and a little bit lighter. Turn in, I thought it turned in a little bit quicker than the Stinger. And I actually thought that the 2-liter with the manual that we had, that was probably a month or two ago now, that one was even quicker to turn in because, lighter front end.
Super willing to rotate, yeah.
Yep. And that one, I like the driving dynamics of it even more. Obviously, the 3.3-liter V6, is an awesome engine, super fast. But, I might take the manual over that ultimate speed just to have more fun, especially since, others are cutting out the manual in this segment. The 3 Series is no longer offered with a manual at the base spec. I think Genesis is doing something really awesome there. So
that's a very interesting point there. I wonder if that could get them some conquest customers from different brands who are like, well, wait a minute, I could get a manual in this car with this engine. Well, hold on now. So I feel like that it's a smart move. And I think that's like a little thing Genesis could do, sort of as this challenger, sporty luxury brand, try to win a few people over. So we'll see.
I just wish their manual transmission was a little more tactile.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's that. They don't have the best manual transmission in the world. That's for sure.
But yeah, Zach, I completely agree with you about the infotainment, especially like the way it sticks out of the top of the dash like a little tablet. It would have been nice if Genesis sort of took that and did their own thing with it, just to give it a little more of its own look.
Yeah, exactly.
That did stick out to me every time I looked over there.
Fun car. I actually would feel very confident, maybe not very, but more confident in the Genesis versus the Kia. I think between the two on a track, just the way the Genesis is set up, the way it handles, the way you feel when you're driving it. For me, it seemed like the visibility was slightly better. I don't know. Maybe I just adjusted the seat a little better.
No, I think you're right. I think it is, especially out the rear. The rear opening in the Stinger is pretty small, and it's pretty dark back there when you look in the rear view mirror.
I also wonder too, hopefully for Genesis, they could keep sort of the quality where it should be as a luxury brand, because our long-term Stinger is making some weird noises. That passenger side door is like, I don't know what's going on, if there's like a cat living in there or something, but it sounds weird at different times.
I'll have to make a check for all my cats when I get home.
How many cats do you have, John?
4.
All right, so are you down one by chance?
I don't think so. I'll look under all the beds and closets.
My dog has ridden in the Stinger and liked it. There's plenty of room back there. In the back
it's great for putting a car seat in. I would not want to put a car seat in the back of the Genesis. Could maybe he'd be kicking the back of the seat in front of him for sure. I definitely wouldn't want to sit in the back of the Genesis as an adult. There is very little.
It's tight back there.
Yeah, that's the worst. That's the biggest downside for it.
I did get a rear-facing convertible car seat in the back of the G70 this morning, and it wasn't that bad. Ingress and egress was a little tough because it's pretty tight roof line. You got to lean over because I like to put my little buddy in the middle seat, where of course that's where APA recommends they go. So it's doable, but to your point, John, it's not ideal. And he was kicking the back seat, and but fun car. I really enjoyed it. I did a couple of like a late night run to Wendy's in this thing this morning. I basically worked from home a little bit and came into the office a little bit later, so there was like almost no traffic. Had a lot of time to just like blast up and down some of the open suburban roads. It sounds pretty good. Not as good as the Stinger, I don't think, because the Stinger has really got that hot rod vibe.
Yeah, the Stinger, I feel like more of that sound gets pumped into the cabin, whereas it's more isolated in the Genesis.
Yeah, it's...
Before I forget, I found the Monroney for this one, the total price on it is $50,995. This is the 2019 G70 all-wheel drive 3.3T with the Prestige package. So that has the everything from the Elite package, which is low beam assist, rain sensing wipers, a bigger sunroof, wireless charging, and then the Prestige has that heads up display and the Napa leather seating and heated rear seats, which is nice.
Oh, so if you can struggle back there, you get heated seats. So there you go.
Yeah. But I just want to note the price before, and that's about on par with the Stinger with the same equipment when I was playing with both the configurators.
So here's a kind of meta question for you guys. Which of these, the G70 versus the Stinger, do you think is more likely to reach its core audience?
I think the Stinger is already finding some of its core audience. Honestly, the design it looks sportier than the G70. Like, it's not a knock against the G70 styling. I absolutely love the way that thing looks. I think it is the best looking sports sedan on the market now to me. But the Stinger, with that awesome slick sportback look, I think it's definitely going to speak to more people who like performance cars / fast Grand Tourers than the G70.
Interesting. What do you think, John?
It's tough. It depends on how well Genesis markets itself and gives the dealers the resources to do the same. That's the thing, is getting people in the seats. I think once people get in the seats of the Genesis, they're going to fall in love with it. I think there's probably if you're looking at these two cars, the same price, I think more people are going to be drawn to the one with the more luxurious sort of feel to it, especially when it's as quick and capable as it is. I think the G70 will probably be more likely to find its core audience. I think Genesis is probably up to the challenge of getting it out there and getting the word out and getting people in it. And yeah, it just takes someone seeing it up close. They'll be in it.
Yeah, well, one of the barriers I see with the Genesis is their dealers. The whole, getting actual Genesis dealers out there, people that understand the cars and everything, that's been a big sticking point with Hyundai as far as just the Genesis brand in general. And I really, really hope that they get it figured out for this car because it's 100% worth it.
So to give a really nuanced, maybe fence-sitting answer here, I think in the short term it will be the Stinger, because I think it's easier to sell just like this hot rod performance car from Kia, and I think people will buy that. I think Kia is established enough, and they have, I think, a different, maybe cooler image versus, say, Hyundai. So I think there's people that are like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I'll see what this thing is. Enough of like us and our fellow car magazines have written about it and said it's pretty cool. So I think like short term, I think, the Stinger could actually, hit its mark. Long term, I think the G70 is a better car. I love driving it in a way that, frankly, I'm not as enamored with driving the Kia. And I feel like right now, the dealers and the brand perception issues that I think will sort of dog Genesis for a while until they could get themselves into that place with BMW, with Acura, with Audi, with Cadillac. Because right now I don't think there's a negative connotation with Genesis. I just don't think, one, people necessarily know what it is.
Yeah, there's zero connotation whatsoever.
Yeah, and I don't think, two, that speaks to its luxurious character. I think you need to, you can say what you want about Cadillac, but if you say literally people say this is the Cadillac of coffee mugs, the Cadillac of whipped cream. It's a dated, probably US-centric term, but people still use it everywhere. So they don't have a brand problem necessarily. They need to sort of sell vehicles and tweak their product portfolio. I don't think people necessarily know what Genesis is. They still think maybe of Sega Genesis. Yeah. And this is something that Infiniti and Acura struggle with too. I interviewed an Infiniti executive one time who said, yeah, it's tricky. People think we're speakers or we're
Right.
like software or something. So I think to me, yeah, long term, they could keep building a G70 of this kind of quality 5 years down the road when they elevate Genesis to the point that it's like, I don't know, the presenting sponsor of, you know, the Masters or something, and people are genuinely fired up to take this thing to all the places that like people want to take their luxury cars. I mean, that's when this product is already here. Like, I mean, John and I are telling you right here that this is as good as like a lot of the things out there, and Zach loves it too. So I'm not, you know, not siphoning you off here. But yeah, that's my, like, I'd say very nuanced analysis as I think about it and think out loud. But I mean, right now, I just think you could cross shop the Stinger with some enthusiast fanboys. They'd be like, oh, this thing's awesome.
Yeah.
Buy it. And it would beat some of the existing competitors. I just find it tough to believe that, you know, the crowd that pays for stuff because it's expensive is going to go with the Genesis over some of these other things, just because that's the way it's always been done. I feel like that's a tough hill to climb for any luxury maker. But to put a bow on it, love the G70. I think it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cool. So I guess we should probably spend some money now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this one is a good one. This comes from the What Should I Buy mega thread on Reddit's R Cars forum, which is awesome. You got to check it out. We're about due to do another AMA, I think, on Reddit. What do you think, guys?
Yeah.
Those are fun.
Yeah, they're fun.
All right, so I'm going to go through this really quickly because, you know, if you look at the What Should I Buy mega thread, there's all kinds of like, you know, it's a templated thing. So location is Minnesota, price range 25 grand, wants to buy the car new, SUV/crossover, must-haves, all-wheel drive, fuel efficient as possible with some cargo space, automatic transmission, will be used as a daily driver, but sometimes camping and some travel, so that's good. No vehicles already considered. This is not their first vehicle. It's got to have a warranty, and this person can also do some minor work on their own vehicle. So basically, we need a $25,000 crossover that you can use for almost anything.
Subaru Forester. It's got all-wheel drive baked in. Starts at $25,270. Fuel economy is great. 26 city, 33 highway. This new generation, they've made it even bigger on the inside. The rear opening is absolutely massive. And yeah, it's just got a ton of space. It's comfortable to drive. It's economical to drive. I like driving it. I like what Subaru does with it. And yeah, I feel like if you're going to take it camping, you can get it out, you know. You can certainly get it out to a campsite and a campground. You can probably get it out in a field somewhere on some muddy hill or something. But I think it suits all these intended uses very well.
Excellent choice. Zach.
I was actually also thinking Subaru, but I went with the Crosstrek. I figure, you know, you could I was thinking Forester, but you can get a higher trim Crosstrek if you're willing to go with a slightly smaller vehicle. You know, it hits that fuel efficiency thing a little bit better. And, you know, you can totally go camping with it. So it, you know, it has the whole Subaru all-wheel drive, obviously. So take it off-road. And, you know, it's going to be a great little daily driver, I think. You know, it's small, somewhat agile. You know, it's a fun little Subaru that can do all the practical things that you want to do with it.
Cool. I'm going to say Jeep Cherokee Latitude, which is essentially one of the more base trims. I cheated a little bit. Mine comes in at $26,990. That's the MSRP if you add all-wheel drive, because you have to, according to this person, which gives you that extra premium that gets you a little bit away from the $25,000 threshold. That being said, there's some incentives available on the Cherokee. So if you shop around, you could probably get this fairly close to that $25K price range. Cherokee's cool. I'll also admit that the fuel economy on this thing's not great, but I wouldn't say it's much worse than either of the Subarus, actually. So it's respectable. It's a very cool vehicle. It, yeah, I mean, I think it's like we were talking about with the Grand Cherokee. The Cherokee's design, is holding up pretty well. It was a little controversial when it came out,
Yeah.
but I think people are used to it, and it looks pretty good. I wouldn't go as far to say it's a timeless Hall of Famer like the things we were throwing on the other one, the older Cherokees were, but I think this is definitely one worth cross shopping, and it would give you a little bit of a, bit of a change up compared to your, Subaru dealership shop that you would be doing. So, yeah. What do you guys think? Anything else?
I actually had one other. Depends if you're willing to wait a few months to buy, but Ford just revealed their 2020 Escape, and there's a hybrid model there. And the hybrid also has all-wheel drive available. I imagine that won't be too far over your $25,000 price point when it does come out. You can get it in the hybrid in the lowest trim level. There's no blockades there or anything. So that is going on sale the fourth quarter this year, according to Ford. So if you're looking for something short-term, probably can't be on your list. But if you're willing to wait a little while, I think that it definitely fulfills all of your needs and will be the most fuel efficient on the list as well for your long 200 to 500 mile road trips that you mentioned down there in your notes too. So
good choices. Mazda CX-5 is one that comes up a lot in discussions like this. To get all-wheel drive, that's going to push it, again, sort of like the Jeep, a little north of your desired price point, but also a really good-looking vehicle.
Yeah, that would be my second choice. Not quite as fuel-efficient as the Forester, and I don't know, the new Forester just makes such a good use of space. It's really one of those weird things, like House of Leaves, where it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, which is wild. But yeah, CX-5 is a really good call. I would definitely give that a try, but I would end up in the Forester either way.
Forester's a strong case too. That would have been my actual second pick here. I like the Forester a lot as well. There's actually a new Outback that we're going to see at the New York Auto Show. Mm-hmm. We don't know what the pricing is going to be on that, but symmetrical all-wheel drive. If you're looking at the Forester and you're already looking at the Crosstrek, you might as well walk around the Subaru dealer and look at all of them and see what you can get for $25,000. Make your best deal. Jeep, the Escape Hybrid's really interesting. I like that thought too.
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, and the new Escape looks pretty good too, from what we've seen of it.
Yeah, it's pretty slick. Almost looks like a car, not much of a crossover. So it's riding on Ford's new platform, so I imagine it's probably going to handle pretty good too. So if you like fun cars, that might be one to hold out for.
Cool. All right. So you can hold out for that or go with one of our other choices. Thanks for writing into Reddit, but it's definitely a cool place to check out, different car discussions, that's for sure, on our cars. We, of course, are Autoblog. Thanks for listening this week. Be safe out there. We'll see you next time.